get some physical activity so then maybe the parents can, I don't know, take a nap, stare at a wall, have a glass of wine, get some work done, cry in the bathroom, I tease. But, it gives everyone a little time, and I think that more of that is coming, which leads me to, we talked about restaurants and potentially what that could look like, and surely the prices will come up. What about schools? Do you think that we'll go back to typical classes? And if we do you think that they'll be smaller? I mean, I think if we do go back, they would be smaller, but I don't know if people are going to feel comfortable sending their kids back. Like you're like, yeah, I want my daughter to go back to school, but do we risk the virus? And did that come up with your decision on sending your daughter back too? A little bit of fear around the virus, or do you not have any about that right now?
I think that's a really, really good question, because if you've done any research on the Spanish flu, which, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there's some kind of viral similarities between the Spanish flu and COVID. The second wave was much worse than the first. And so I think there's a little bit of hesitation in that, one, we don't have a vaccination. We don't even have a solid treatment for this because it's viral. We're basically just trying to keep people alive while their body handles the recovery process. We have seen something called, that I think they're calling like remission, where people are fine, but then they get sick again. And the running theory in that case is that they never actually fully recovered. It's almost like cancer, where there's just like a reintroduction of the symptoms at a later time. So there's a lot we don't know. But the other thing we do know is that the economy is dying. The unemployment is only going to get people so far. Teachers need to work. People need to. I need to work. I need to go to work, which means I need someone to teach my children, right? And so, as people get this sense of normalcy, they're starting to entertain the idea of going back to the way that things were before. So when I got that phone call about daycare, like my first thought was, well, if I send my youngest back to school, my oldest will be bored out of her mind all day and in my hair even more, because they do somewhat entertain each other throughout the day. My second thought was, well, I really probably should find out what precautions they're taking in order to ensure that they mitigate kind of contamination. But then my third thought was, it doesn't matter what kind of steps they're taking, because educating children and being with small children in general require close proximity, regular interaction with them in a way that you be breathing their air, they're breathing your air. And then the fourth realization was that at some point we are going to have to be around other people again. And the best thing that I can do is kind of keep an eye on like the scenario with the most up-to-date information, and then understand that eventually all of us will have COVID. We'll all have been exposed to it at some point, merely because we can't live inside four walls forever, and this isn't going away. So I think personally we're rolling out reopens too soon. We don't have testing. We don't have a cure or even a treatment, really. And we don't have vaccines, which some people are, that's a hot topic for a lot of people in and of itself, which means that even if we did have a vaccine, getting everyone to have it would be a whole other hurdle. And so the herd immunity that you would need for it to be effective would be compromised. So there's really no good or easy answers here. And all I know is that my daughter doesn't want to go back to daycare, and that was the number one factor in my deciding as to whether or not she would go back.
She says she's just not ready. She doesn't want to leave her sister.
Yeah, I think that's, she's 3, so almost 4, so I don't know that she communicated as much, but I asked her if she was ready to go back and see her friends and her teachers, and she immediately said no. And I said, why not? And she said, I already learned things.
Oh, smart. Yes, she did, indeed.
I'm learning then, huh?
She knows it all. You got a teenager on your hands already. I tease. But, yeah, this, I'm looking at it the same way you are, and I'm glad that we're getting an opportunity to talk about this, because I feel like some of my other co-hosts on some of my other podcasts have wildly different views, and that's fine, but it's always a little more difficult combining those ideas together. And I think you and I have some of the similar ideas, which I agree. And I'm glad that you brought that up, the Spanish flu, because I've been trying to stand back objectively and look at all this and not feel oppressed and not feel scared, but standing back with a clear mind so I can take a look. And I keep going back to what I already know, which is indeed Spanish flu's second wave killed, I think, 3 times. We'd have to get the number, but I think it was 3 times as many people, which is very disturbing. And I'm feeling like we're opening up too soon as well. I feel like there's reasons why we're opening up too soon. Part of it, I think, are some of the protesters. And then the other parts of it is, well, if we're not working, then the more we're not working and the longer we stay out of work, the longer it's going to take to get the economy up and running, which on some level I would like to see the economy up and running. I just want to see it done differently. So in my personal view, I feel like the longer we stay closed down, the more opportunity we have to see all the holes in capitalism and then potentially come at it from a little different angle, using some of the same modalities and techniques as that capitalism offers us, but then softening it and then turning it a lot more green and sustainable. So I think what I'm going to do is work from home for the rest of the year, and I might be overstretching it a bit, and I'll evaluate each month we go through, but I do massage outside of the house, and what you said really caught my attention, Sarah, which was, if you're driving by someone, it's literally a second that you're in their space. If you're eating out, your waitress is bringing you stuff right to your body every whatever amount of time, so you're exposed directly. When I'm doing massages, half of the time people's trouble spots are on their neck and shoulders, and I'm like inches from their face, depending on what treatment I'm doing and technique. And I'm like, I just don't feel comfortable exposing myself, potentially being asymptomatic, and then passing it on to 5 people a day. I don't know if my emotions can handle that, so I'm just going to kind of stand back and beef up my remote work and practice that and get that going and put energy into that and reevaluate. But there's kind of some experts, and I'd have to get their names to reference them, but are saying that we might see another wave in the fall. Have you heard anything about that?
I have heard that. I've heard a lot of things. Obviously, we all have, if we've been even remotely paying attention, and I'm one of those remotely pays attention. I don't dial in every day. I just read, high-end articles or whatever. But I think that there's a lot of assumptions based on how most viruses interact. And so in general, we see flus and other viral things die off in the heat. And some people argue, that's because of the heat. But most that do the research tend to credit it to schools are usually out in the summer. And so, anyone who knows kids in school, they're little petri dishes. But also when you're in college or high school or whatever, you're constantly in the presence of large amounts of people, and oftentimes different people every, period when you're moving around. And so it's a great place for things like the flu and colds, to get a lot of traction. So in the warm months, summer's out, people are oftentimes outside more, so they aren't in the confined spaces where there's a lot of recirculated air. Sun will disinfect surfaces. So if you're outside and you touch something, it's not going to survive as long as if you were inside and touch something and the sun doesn't disinfect it. So when things get cold, you start to go back inside. You start breathing that recirculated air again. And so I think that's what we are expecting to happen in the fall, and it will absolutely happen with a resurgence in the fall if we have not found a way to kind of mitigate the spread at this time, because we're basically going to have all of this recirculated air with a bunch of asymptomatic and even symptomatic people back in the workforce. Right now, everyone's just breathing their home air. So even if you have COVID and you get sick, it's generally pretty mild for most people. Immunocompromised people, and I'm even wondering if there are certain strands, because there are a couple of different strands that have been identified that might have worse symptoms. But even it's been talked about that maybe certain people have genes that activate the virus differently. So your genetics may come into play as to how you respond to COVID. So there's a lot we just don't know, but I do fully anticipate that the fall will bring with it another wave. And I think that I'm not alone in that. I know that schools are already kind of planning, public schools anyway, here in Nashville are already kind of looking, what does it look like to go virtual in the next, fall as well.
That's what I was going to ask you. Is there kind of some movement in play to maybe even go virtual into the fall just to be safe with the kids? Like you said, Peachtree dishes, those kids are just touching everything, putting their hands in their mouth. I mean, it's just, it's very contagious in schools.
I think so. And I think that, we're all just kind of surviving right now, which is expected. Yeah, and I'll be honest, I'm not a homeschooler. I have no patience for it. I go and I pick up the packets. I let my 7-year-old read them herself. She chooses what to do and what not to do. And I just pray that kind of we're life schooling as much as homeschooling. We play some games. She keeps score, so she's getting a little bit of math there. But is she, going to learn all the things she probably should have learned? Probably not. And we're just doing the best. But how long can you let that go, right? And I think probably most parents are out there feeling very similarly. Like, I didn't sign up for homeschooling. That was nothing that I ever wanted to be a part of. But here we are, and so how can we ensure that kids are being kept on track? There's this awesome little program that the school has, Kaya, my oldest, access to, but it requires a computer, and I'm on one computer, my husband's on the other. So we had this old computer, we booted it up, and it died, like it just didn't work. So, that's a common struggle. Like, my sister's a teacher, and she has kids, and the only device in their entire house for some of her students is one single iPhone. And, the mom can't not have her phone with her, right? And so, how do we teach these kids, or how do we give these kids access to information and educational content if they don't have the devices that some of us take for granted? Because I'll tell you, I certainly didn't think I was going to be in the market for a computer for my 7-year-old.
Right, for her to continue her studies. Yeah, right. This is something that I've been thinking about, and as many households that have extra devices like iPhones and laptops and iPads, there's a lot of families out there that don't even have internet running to their house. So we're going to have to figure out a way that everyone can stay on track, also have access to the studies, and get some tutoring if they need it, or having the parents be shown a few things so they can keep them in line. I don't know if I could do the homeschooling thing either. My patients just don't. I'll sit with someone for an hour explaining some Facebook things, and I'm already frazzled after it. So I'm I know that wouldn't be for me either. And I think that you're right. I think there's a lot of parents who just didn't sign up for that. And not everyone's got those communities. We discussed how maybe one parent can teach this day and one parent teach this day and give each other a break. A lot of people don't have a community for that. So I'm wondering how this is all going to play out, and hoping for the best, but maybe with some public funding we can dispense some iPads to some kids. In fact, I think when this first started and they had to have those teachers flip on a dime from teaching in front of a classroom into teaching in front of a video, I think that I saw, I know that I saw, I can't remember what city it was, just boxes of iPads going out to the poorer districts so that they can get some schooling, some training. Again, maybe the mom doesn't even have an iPhone. Maybe there's just a house phone for emergencies, So this is going to leave a lot of people out in the cold. And by people, I mean kids not getting proper training for just anything. So I'll be interested to see how they manage all this. But the cool thing is, I think that the teachers, like your sister and all of them out there, are going above and beyond for their students. So with any luck, the heart energy of teachers will definitely expand into some of the homes, even if they have to